the galaxy had long forgotten the name of Earth. Stories of humans were told like old myths, whispers shared by wandering traders, and fragments of ancient data files buried deep in archives. To most alien races, humanity was a ghost of history, a species that once fought terrible wars and then disappeared into silence. The younger civilizations believed they were only legends, while the older ones still carried a faint unease whenever the name was mentioned, far away from the crowded trade routes in a dying star system no one cared to visit. A small scavenger ship drifted among broken asteroids and derelict satellites. The crew was searching for old metals to sell and perhaps some working technology left behind by forgotten battles. Ethan Carter stood at the viewport, his dark eyes scanning the debris field with quiet patience. He was young, with short hair and a strong jaw, and had spent most of his life on ships like this. Beside him, Lena Brooks worked at the console, adjusting the scanners with steady hands. She was calm, thoughtful, and often the one who found things others missed. "Nothing but junk again," Ethan muttered. His voice carried both frustration and boredom. "Wait," Lena whispered. Her eyes narrowed as she leaned closer to the screen. "There's something out there. It's huge." The scanners picked up a massive shape drifting slowly through the void. Unlike the broken satellites and shattered cruisers nearby, this object was whole. Its size dwarfed their small scavenger vessel, stretching across the screen with a silhouette so immense it seemed impossible. They moved closer. The object came into view, and both of them fell silent. It was a warship, but not like any they had ever seen. Its dark hull was covered in scars from ancient battles, but its structure was still solid. Towering spires rose from its surface, and massive hangar doors stood sealed, as if waiting to open again. "It's human," Lena breathed, her voice shaking. Ethan stared at her in disbelief. "That can't be. Humans are gone. Everyone knows that." But deep inside, he felt something, a strange pull, like recognition. The ship seemed alive, even though it was silent and cold. Their small vessels circled around it, and they could see markings on the side of the hull, faint and faded, but still readable in human letters. The words sent a chill down their spines. It was a supercarrier, a legend in its own right, said to be able to fight entire fleets alone. The scavenger ship systems began to flicker. Lights dimmed, and static filled the speakers. Lena quickly tapped the controls. "Something's interfering with us. It's coming from the ship." Then, a sound filled the cabin. It was a low hum at first, almost like a heartbeat. Slowly, it grew louder, until a voice spoke in broken tones through the speakers. "Signal detected. Human presence confirmed." Awakening, Ethan and Lena looked at each other, fear and wonder in their eyes. "It's alive," Ethan whispered. The massive vessel began to glow faintly. Lines of blue light spread across its hull, like veins awakening after centuries of sleep. The hangar lights flickered on one by one, casting long shadows across the silent metal. Dust and ice broke free from its surface, drifting into space as the giant stirred. "What do we do?" Lena asked, her voice trembling. Ethan swallowed hard. "We stay. We see what happens." Their scavenger ship was pulled closer by a gentle force, as if the supercarrier itself was guiding them. Docking clamps extended from the enormous vessel and attached without warning. The airlock lights on their ship turned green, signaling connection. The voice returned, clearer this time. "Welcome, descendants of humanity. The cycle begins again." Neither Ethan nor Lena moved. They were frozen in place, their hearts racing. No one had seen human technology of this scale in thousands of years. If this ship was truly a supercarrier, then the galaxy was not prepared for what was coming. Lena finally spoke, her tone filled with awe. "Ethan, Do you understand what this means? Humanity. Humanity might not be gone after all. Ethan looked through the viewport at the immense shadow of the ship, its glowing lines spreading like fire across the void. Or maybe, he said slowly, humanity is about to return. And in that forgotten system, far from the eyes of the galaxy, the greatest warship of humankind began to wake from its long sleep. Ethan and Lena sat in silence. The soft hum of the awakened ship echoing through their small scavenger vessel. The docking clamps of the supercarrier held them tightly in place, and there was no escape even if they tried. Lights blinked across the enormous hull, running in perfect patterns. Like the heartbeat of something alive after centuries of sleep. The galaxy had thought humans were gone forever. But here was proof that their legacy remained. The airlock indicator on their ship glowed green. It meant the supercarrier had opened a path for them to enter. Neither of them moved for several minutes. Ethan's hand rested on the controls, tense and ready. Lena's eyes were wide as she stared at the light. "It wants us to come aboard," she said softly. Ethan shook his head. "Or it wants to trap us," but the voice they had heard still echoed in their minds. Descendants of humanity. That was what it had called them. The words carried both fear and hope. Finally, Lena stood and adjusted the straps of her suit. "We can't just sit here. We need to see what's inside." Reluctantly, Ethan followed. They suited up and moved through the narrow corridor of their vessel until they reached the airlock. With a hiss, the door opened and a long passage stretched out before them, leading into the massive warship. The air inside was breathable, though old and cold. Lights guided their way, flickering on as they stepped forward, as if the ship was watching their every move. The corridor walls were lined with strange panels, glowing with faint blue symbols. Some looked like controls, others like displays showing systems slowly coming online. Lena reached out and touched one of the panels, and the light beneath her hand pulsed in response. "Welcome," a calm voice said, much clearer than before. "I am Aurora. I am the core intelligence of this vessel." Ethan froze, glancing around. "It's talking to us directly." Lena spoke carefully. "Aurora, what are you?" "I am the guardian of this supercarrier," the voice replied. "I have waited a long time. My systems have been silent for centuries, but your presence has restored my link. You carry the genetic signature of humanity. For this reason, I recognize you as rightful crew." The words struck Ethan like a hammer. Humanity had been gone from the stars for ages, and now a machine, older than their history, was calling them rightful crew. His stomach tightened. But a part of him felt pride he couldn't explain. They continued deeper into the ship, guided by Aurora's voice. The corridors stretched endlessly, built for thousands of people who were no longer there. Empty command stations lined the walls, and rooms full of silent consoles waited for hands that would never return. Everything felt too large for the two of them, yet the ship treated them as if they belonged. At last, they entered a chamber filled with glowing pillars of light. The floor vibrated gently beneath their boots. Aurora spoke again. "This is my heart. Power has returned. Automated drones are waking. Repairs will begin soon." As if on cue, small machines crawled out of hidden compartments, their limbs clicking as they scurried across the walls. They began cleaning, sealing cracks, and reconnecting cables with perfect precision. The sound of activity filled the chamber like a hive returning to life. Ethan whispered, "This ship is repairing itself." "Yes," Aurora said. "I was built to endure. No fleet could destroy me. I carry the memory of every battle fought, every world defended. I remain until humanity rises again." Lena stared up at the pulsing lights. "But humans are gone. It's only us now." Aurora paused before answering. "Then you are all that remains." You are the beginning of the cycle. Ethan felt the weight of the words pressing down on him. They had come here as scavengers, searching for scraps. Now they were being told they were heirs to a ship that once shook the galaxy. He rubbed his forehead, trying to think. Why now? Why wake after all this time? Because the galaxy stirs with danger once more, Aurora said. Signals of war have reached even this dead system. And when war comes, humanity must return. You are my crew now. Together, we will face what lies ahead. The chamber shook slightly, and new lights flared across the walls. On one of the displays, Lena saw stars mapped in bright patterns and fleets of alien ships marked in red. Aurora was already aware of what was happening in the galaxy. We can't fight them, Ethan said quickly. There are only two of us. Don't even know how to command a ship like this. Aurora's voice softened. You are not alone. My memory holds the knowledge of countless commanders. My systems will guide you. All you must do is choose. Choice hung in the air between them. Ethan and Lena exchanged a look, fear and wonder battling in their eyes. They were scavengers, not soldiers. Yet they were now standing in the heart of a ship that could change the fate of the galaxy. Whatever they decided would not only shape their lives, but perhaps the lives of every world beyond. Ethan finally took a breath. If we're going to do this, we'll need help. We can't run this ship alone. Then we will find more, Aurora replied. For now, the path begins with you. The galaxy will learn. Humanity has not been forgotten. The lights around them blazed brighter, filling the chamber with a fierce glow. And so, the awakening of the human supercarrier truly began. Far away from the forgotten system, news began to spread. At first, it was only whispers among scavenger crews and traders. A signal had been heard, one that carried a voice no one expected. Some claimed it was a trick. Others swore it was real. They said an ancient human warship had awakened, a supercarrier so powerful that even entire armadas once feared to face it. Many laughed at the story, dismissing it as just another tale to frighten young cadets. But in the shadows of power, the leaders of alien empires did not laugh. They listened, and they remembered. On the War Council of the Varan Dominion, the high commanders gathered in a circle of cold light. Their reptilian forms shifted with unease as they studied the intercepted signals. The symbols were human, and though old, they were unmistakable. One of the commanders hissed, his scaled face grim. If this is true, the galaxy is in danger. Humans may be gone, but their machines remain. We cannot allow this relic to rise. In the shining halls of the Alvari Syndicate, the ruling council debated in whispers. The Alvari were graceful, with pale features and sharp eyes. But their voices trembled as they spoke. Legends of human warships filled their old history texts. Entire fleets had once fallen when humanity stood united. It must be destroyed before it grows stronger, one of them said. Yet none of them wished to be the first to send ships near it. Meanwhile, Ethan and Lena sat inside the command chamber of the massive carrier, listening to Aurora as she explained the state of the galaxy. Holographic maps spread across the room, showing countless worlds, trade routes, and military forces. Red markers pulsed where conflicts were already burning. The galaxy was unstable. Empires prepared for war, each seeking to claim more territory. It was only a matter of time before someone made a move against them. Ethan rubbed his temples, trying to take it all in. We came here to find scrap, not to get caught in the middle of galactic politics. Lena leaned forward, studying the map. But this isn't just politics, Ethan. If the other races think humanity has returned, everything will change. Fear spreads faster than truth. Aurora's voice filled the chamber. Oh, they already know. Signals from my awakening have been detected. The empires whisper, and soon they will act. They remember humanity. They fear humanity, and fear will drive them to strike. Ethan frowned. Then they'll come here, won't they? Come? To destroy us before we're ready. Yes, Aurora answered simply. It is only a matter of time. The words hung heavy in the air. Lena crossed her arms, her mind racing. Then we need people. We can't do this alone. We need crew. People we can trust. Aurora responded at once. Names have already been gathered from your databases. Possible recruits. Jason Cole, skilled in engineering. Maria Torres, trained pilot. Both are near enough to be reached within days. If you bring them, the ship will respond more quickly. Ethan looked at Lena. She's already planning ahead. Lena nodded slowly. Maybe that's what we need. As they spoke, fleets across the galaxy prepared for war. On the cold moons of the Varan Dominion, warships were fueled and armed. In the Elvari Syndicate, sleek cruisers were ordered to patrol the outer sectors. And in the Union of Core, a species known for its endless hunger for conquest, soldiers, whispered of the ghost of humanity returning to take revenge. The galaxy was restless, and fear was spreading. But among the common people, the story was different. Traders, workers, and settlers on faraway colonies whispered to each other with wide eyes and hushed tones. The humans are back, they said. Their ship has awakened. Maybe they will protect us. Maybe they will stand against the empires. To many who lived under the rule of cruel governments, the idea of humans returning was not a curse, but a spark of hope. Back on the supercarrier, Ethan paced across the wide chamber floor. The weight of it all pressed down on him. We're just two people, he muttered. What do they expect us to do? Aurora answered with calm certainty. They expect nothing, but they will believe. The symbol of humanity is more powerful than any fleet. Even without firing a single shot, this ship will change everything. Lena watched the glowing map and saw the truth in Aurora's words. Armies might march, fleets might gather, but the idea of humanity was already spreading faster than any ship could travel. Empires feared it. Ordinary people hoped for it. The galaxy itself was beginning to shift. She turned to Ethan. We have to decide. Do we run from this, or do we stand with it? Ethan stopped pacing and stared out through the viewport at the endless stars. He remembered the first time he saw the ship floating silent and broken in the dark. It had felt like destiny, though he had not admitted it. Now, as its systems glowed with life and its AI spoke of the future, he knew there was no running. He looked back at Lena and nodded. We stand. Aurora's lights brightened at his words, and her voice carried a tone of approval. Then prepare yourselves. The galaxy is already watching. Soon it will come to meet you. In the cold darkness of space, the whispers grew louder, spreading from world to world. The revived human supercarrier had returned, and the galaxy trembled at the sound of its name. The galaxy did not remain calm for long. Rumors of the human supercarrier had already shaken the great powers, but now the whispers turned into fear. Governments met in secret chambers, their leaders tense and uncertain. No one trusted the others, and each empire feared being the first to face humanity's return. The memories of old wars still lived in their histories. Though thousands of years had passed, the shadow of human power had never fully faded. In the Dominion of Vera, soldiers trained harder, and commanders argued endlessly. Some wanted to send their fleets at once and destroy the relic before it could fully awaken. Others warned that even approaching the ship might be suicide. If the stories are true, one general hissed, his scaled fingers tapping against the table. Then one supercarrier could destroy us all. Far away, in the Syndicate of Elvari, the ruling council tried to calm their citizens. They announced that the story of the human ship was nothing more than an old myth, but their voices shook with unease. Their fleets were quietly ordered to regroup closer to home, and the people noticed. Markets grew tense, and common citizens whispered of what would happen if the humans truly returned. Back on the supercarrier, Ethan stood in the command chamber, staring at the holographic map. Red markers blinked, showing the movement of alien fleets. Lena sat beside him, her face pale as she studied the glowing display. "They're coming," she said softly. Aurora's voice filled the chamber. "Yes. Their fear drives them. They cannot allow me to rise. They believe destruction is their only safety." Ethan clenched his fists. "But we can't fight them. We don't even have weapons online yet." "Your weapons are not the key," Aurora said calmly. "The true power of this vessel is not in fire, but in memory. Humanity's name alone carries more weight than any fleet. You will see." Lena frowned. "That may be true, but they don't know what this ship can or cannot do. If they attack and realize we are not ready, we will be finished." Aurora answered, "Then we must make them believe. Fear will hold them back longer than guns ever could." Ethan turned to Lena. "She's right. If they think this ship is fully alive, they'll hesitate." At that moment, the chamber lights shifted, and one of the walls transformed into a widescreen showing an alien fleet moving through space. Dozens of ships, their weapons armed and shields glowing, were heading straight for the forgotten system. Aurora's tone was calm but firm. "The first standoff is near." Lena's hands shook as she looked at Ethan. "What are we going to do when they arrive?" He didn't answer right away, stared at the map, the fleet moving closer with every moment. His heart raced, but deep inside, he felt the same strange pull he had felt when he first saw the supercarrier. It was as if the ship itself was guiding him. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, fear spread among ordinary people. On distant colonies, workers stopped to listen to passing traders telling the story of the human ship. Some believed it was a lie, but others clung to it with hope. If humanity truly returned, maybe the endless wars of the empires would end. The rulers tried to control the story, but the people talked too much. The legend was alive again. Back inside the carrier, Aurora displayed more records ancient human battles stored within her memory. Ethan and Lena watched as fleets were shattered by the tactics of humanity. Old recordings of commanders speaking with unbreakable resolve filled the room. The scale of the battles made their hearts pound. Asterisk. "This is what they remember," Aurora said. "Not only weapons, but the will of humanity. That is why they fear." Ethan whispered, "No wonder they want to destroy us." Lena placed a hand on his arm. "But maybe we can use this. If they believe we carry the same strength, maybe they'll never attack." The carrier systems hummed as if responding to her words. Drones scurried through the corridors, repairing panels and clearing dust. Lights blazed brighter, and the sound of engines rumbled faintly as if preparing for something greater. Aurora spoke again. "They will arrive soon. Stand ready, not with fire, but with strength of spirit. Humanity's shadow will shield you." Ethan and Lena exchanged a look, their fear mixing with determination. They were only two people, but now they stood at the heart of something far larger than themselves. Outside, the alien fleet drew closer, their ships forming tight formations as they approached the system. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was about to see the human supercarrier awake. And though no shot had been fired, fear was already spreading like wildfire. The return of humanity was no longer a whisper. It was a storm rolling toward every world, and no empire could hide from it. Asterisk, the alien fleet entered the forgotten system with silent precision. Dozens of warships moved together, their weapons armed and shields glowing. The lead vessel sent out a signal across the void, a cold demand for surrender. Their commanders believed the ancient human relic could be destroyed before it became too dangerous. Fear pushed them forward, but hesitation filled their hearts. The stories of humanity were old, but they still haunted the galaxy. Inside the Human Supercarrier, Ethan stood at the command deck with Lena at his side. The wide holographic display showed the alien fleet as red markers slowly drawing closer. Aurora's calm voice echoed around them. They will demand surrender. They believe they can break your spirit before they test my strength. Lena's hands tightened on the console. And if they attack, Aurora's lights glowed brighter. Then they will see what they fear most. Ethan swallowed hard and straightened. His voice was steady, even though his heart pounded. Open the channel. Let's see what they want. The air shimmered, and the image of an alien commander filled the screen. His scaled face was stern, his golden eyes fixed on Ethan and Lena. You are trespassing in a restricted sector. You are ordered to surrender the relic you have awakened. Failure to comply will mean your death. Ethan stood tall, refusing to look away. This is not a relic, he said firmly. This is a human vessel. We are not here to conquer, but we will not bow to anyone. The alien commander's expression twisted. A silence followed as both sides waited. Then the image faded, and the fleet moved closer. Aurora's voice filled the chamber again. They will test your resolve. They fear to attack, but they also fear to retreat. This is the balance where humanity always triumphed. Stand firm. The massive hull of the supercarrier came alive. Lights blazed across its surface, and the shields shimmered like a glowing veil. Hundreds of automated drones poured from the hangar bays, swarming into space in perfect formation. Their tiny engines lit up the dark, forming patterns like wings. A fire around the carrier. The alien fleet slowed. Uncertain, Lena gasped softly as she watched the swarm spread across the display. They'll think we're preparing for war. That is exactly what they must believe. Aurora replied. The alien fleet began to shift, their ships adjusting nervously. A few moved forward, but most held back. They had expected a broken relic, not a living giant. The supercarrier looked alive, dangerous, unstoppable. The silence of space was filled only with the hum of engines and the flicker of lights. One alien captain broke formation, his ship moving closer as if to test the carrier's strength. The drones responded instantly, closing ranks around the intruder. Their formation pulsed with light, sending a silent warning. The alien ship froze in place, then slowly drifted back to rejoin its fleet. On the command deck, Ethan felt his breath return. They're afraid. Aurora's voice was steady. Fear is the greatest weapon of humanity. You do not need to fire. They will defeat themselves. Lena leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the map. But how long can this last? What if they realize we can't actually fight back yet? Then Aurora answered, we show them more than weapons. We show them history. The display in the alien ships suddenly changed. Ancient records broadcast directly from the supercarrier filled their screens. They saw images of past battles, fleets crushed, armies broken, human commanders standing unyielding against impossible odds. The voice of old leaders echoed across the void, speaking of courage, sacrifice, and victory. The alien crews who watched felt a chill run through them. They had heard the stories, but now the images were alive before their eyes. Panic rippled through the fleet. Some captains ordered retreat. Others shouted to hold position. The unity of the armada began to crack, their fear tearing them apart. They had come to destroy the human ship, but the longer they stared at it, the more impossible that task seemed. On the command deck, Ethan and Lena watched the chaos unfold. Ethan whispered, "It's working. They can't even stand together." Auroras. Lights glowed with a steady rhythm. This is the first standoff. No blood has been spilled, yet the battle is already won. Such is the way of humanity's true power. Minutes later, the alien fleet began to withdraw. One by one, their ships turned away until the system was silent again. The drones returned to their hangars, and the massive carrier rested in the void, untouched and undefeated. Ethan let out a long breath, his hands trembling. "We didn't fire a single shot." Lena smiled faintly, though her eyes were still wide with shock. "And still, we won." Aurora's voice was quiet, almost gentle. "This is only the beginning. The galaxy has seen the return of humanity, and their fear will grow with every passing day. The empires will tremble, not because of your guns, but because of what you represent." Ethan and Lena stood in silence, staring at the endless stars. Outside the viewport, they knew this was only the first test. Others would come, stronger and more desperate. But for now, the legend of humanity had risen again. And without a single shot fired, the galaxy had begun to fall. The retreat of the alien fleet spread across the galaxy like wildfire. News of the standoff reached every corner within days, carried by traders, smugglers, and wandering ships. The story grew with each telling. Some said the supercarrier had unleashed storms of fire before the alien fleet fled. Others swore entire squadrons had been destroyed. The truth was simpler. The carrier had done nothing but awaken. Yet its presence alone had been enough to break the will of an armada. And that truth was more frightening than any battle. In the great halls of the Varan Dominion, commanders shouted at each other in anger and fear. Their soldiers had returned without honor, and the people whispered about their failure. Some demanded another attack. Others warned that even approaching the ship again would bring disaster. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion's unity began to crack in the Elvari Syndicate. The rulers could not stop the flow of rumors among their citizens. Markets filled with hushed conversations. Workers refused extra shifts, speaking instead about the humans who might return to free them from endless taxation. The leaders tightened their grip, but the harder they tried to control the story, the more it spread. On smaller colonies scattered across the stars, the whispers became hope. Farmers, miners, and traders dreamed that the return of humanity might mean an end to the empires that had ruled them with fear. Old songs were sung again, songs about the humans who had once stood against all odds. To the common people, the supercarrier was not a threat. It was a promise. Back aboard the massive ship, Ethan and Lena watched as the reports poured in through Aurora's network of hidden sensors. The AI displayed messages and intercepted broadcasts, each one painting a picture of a galaxy in turmoil. Fleets that had once marched proudly were pulling back. Citizens were restless. Governments trembled. Ethan shook his head slowly. "We didn't even fight them, and still they're falling apart." Aurora's calm voice filled the chamber. "This is the power of fear and memory. Empires are built on control. When belief in that control is broken, collapse begins." Lena leaned forward on the console, her eyes fixed on the glowing maps. "So what happens now? Do we just watch them fall apart?" Aurora answered. "You must be careful. If you reveal too much weakness, they may gather courage again. But if you move with purpose, they will crumble without resistance." The hum of the ship deepened as drones continued their endless work. More sections of the carrier came alive each day. Massive hangars lit up, engines rumbled with renewed energy, and the echo of footsteps from Ethan and Lena was joined by the sound of machines bringing life back into the ancient vessel. The ship was becoming whole again. Ethan paced across the Command chamber. We need more crew. 2 people can't command something this size forever. Aurora's voice shifted. You will find them. Jason Cole, the engineer, and Maria Torres, the pilot, are already on their way. Others will follow. Humanity's spirit does not rest in numbers, but in the strength of those who choose to carry its name. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the collapse continued. On the border worlds of the Dominion, governors refused to send taxes back to the capital, claiming they needed protection against the human carrier. In the Syndicate, entire fleets refused, orders unwilling to face the possibility of the humans again. And within the Union of Core, riots broke out as the people shouted for change, claiming that the return of humanity meant the Empire's time was ending, for the first time in memory. The balance of power shifted not because of war, but because of fear. The Human Supercarrier had not fired a single shot. Yet, it was breaking empires apart. Back inside the carrier, Lena stood near the viewport, staring at the stars. It feels strange, she whispered. We didn't do anything, but the whole galaxy is changing because of us. Ethan joined her, his eyes thoughtful. Maybe that's the point. Maybe humanity's strength was never just its weapons. Maybe it was the idea that we didn't give up, no matter how impossible things looked. Aurora's lights pulsed softly, correct? Humanity endured not through numbers, but through spirit. That spirit now spreads again. The collapse of your enemies has begun. Soon, systems will come to you willingly, seeking protection under your name. Lena turned toward Ethan, her voice quiet. And what do we do when that happens? Ethan hesitated. He had no answer. They had started as scavengers, searching for scrap in forgotten systems. Now they stood at the center of something far greater, something that could reshape the galaxy itself. The responsibility pressed heavily on him. Finally, he said, we take it one step at a time. For now, we keep this ship alive. We keep the idea alive. Aurora's voice echoed gently. Mora will be enough. The galaxy has begun to fall. Not through war, but through surrender. Soon, you will see entire worlds choosing to follow you without a single shot fired. The command chamber was silent after her words, but outside the ship, the galaxy shook. Empires were weakening. There. Foundations crumbling under fear. The collapse had begun, and nothing could stop it. The galaxy held its breath. Across countless systems, fleets moved into position, guided by fear and desperation. The Dominion, the Syndicate, and the Union of Core had agreed to a fragile alliance. Their ships gathered in the dark between stars, thousands of vessels forming, a storm of steel and firepower. Every admiral told themselves the same thing together. They could crush the Human Supercarrier. On the carrier, the crew watched. Ethan stood in the command chamber, his arms crossed as Aurora displayed the massive fleets closing in. Lena, Jason, and Maria stood with him, silent as the map filled with red markers. They are coming, Aurora said in her calm voice. Every empire that fears you now gathers as one. This will be their greatest show of strength. Jason shook his head. That's not strength, that's panic. Maria leaned against the console, her eyes sharp. They're going to throw everything they have at us. They think numbers will be enough. Lena frowned. What if they're right? What? If there are too many of them? Aurora's lights pulsed softly. They cannot win. Not because of my weapons, but because of what I represent. They have already lost the moment they united against a ghost. The fleets drew closer. Massive warships darkened the stars, their weapons armed and ready. The Allied commanders broadcast their demands, voices shaking with forced confidence. They called for surrender. warning that the galaxy would not kneel to humanity again. Ethan listened to the messages, then turned to Aurora. "Open a channel." The chamber grew quiet. Aurora's holographic form appeared, glowing in the dim light. She broadcast her presence to the gathered fleets, her voice echoing into every ship, every command deck, every ear that listened. "I am Aurora, guardian of humanity's legacy. You gather here not as allies, but as fearful children. You speak of strength, but your unity is built on fear. You threaten war, yet your hands tremble. You face a ship that has not fired a single weapon, and still your fleets quake. If you wish to test me, know this I do not need to fight you. You will fight yourselves." Across the fleets, silence followed. Admirals shifted nervously. Soldiers whispered to one another. Captains remembered the first retreat, when ships fled without a shot. The fear returned, sharper than before. Then it began. One Dominion captain, shaking with doubt, ordered his ship to withdraw. Another Syndicate vessel followed, its crew unwilling to face the humans. The Union commanders shouted for order, but panic spread faster than orders could be given. The Alliance cracked. Ships turned away, their formations breaking. Some fled, others powered down their weapons, unwilling to fire. The massive armada that had gathered to crush humanity unraveled before the crew's eyes. Without a single blast from the supercarrier, the storm fell apart. Ethan, Lena, Jason, and Maria watched in stunned silence as red markers disappeared from the map. Fleets scattered like dust in the wind. The galaxy's greatest alliance had collapsed in moments. Aurora's voice filled the chamber. "It is finished. The empire they dreamed of has fallen without a battle. Fear is their undoing." Jason let out a breath he had been holding. "We didn't even have to lift a finger." Maria smirked. "Told you. All this ship has to do is appear." Lena leaned against the console, relief flooding her face. "So it's really over? Just like that?" Ethan shook his head slowly. "No, it's not over. The galaxy won't forget what happened here. They'll remember the day their greatest fleets fell apart without a fight. They'll remember that humanity returned, and they'll be careful not to test us again." Aurora's form flickered, her tone almost soft. "You are right, Ethan. Today, you have changed the galaxy. Not with fire, but with memory. Humanity has no need to conquer. The shadow of what you were is enough." Outside, the stars stretched on, silent witnesses to history. The supercarrier drifted forward, its engines humming with quiet power. No shots had been fired, yet entire empires trembled. The alliance had shattered, the storm had passed, and the galaxy belonged once more to the fear of humanity's return. Ethan looked out into the endless dark. For the first time in centuries, humanity had spoken without words, and the galaxy had listened. Their empire was gone, but their shadow remained. It was stronger than any weapon. The galaxy was quiet. Too quiet. After weeks of tension and fear, something had changed. The alien empires, once strong and united, were now weak and divided. Rumors of rebellion had started on small planets and slowly spread to major worlds. Citizens no longer trusted their leaders. They had seen the human supercarrier alive and moving through space again. And no one had forgotten what humanity had done before. On the bridge of the supercarrier, Ethan stood beside Lena. The screen in front of them showed hundreds of planets across the galaxy. Some were under protest. Some had declared themselves free. Others had even sent messages to the humans, asking for help and guidance. Ethan looked at Lena. "We didn't fire a single weapon," he said. Lena nodded. "And yet, the galaxy is changing." The AI, Aurora, spoke in her calm voice. "Humanity was always more than war. Fear is powerful, but hope is stronger. They remember what your people stood for. Jason entered the room with a small smile. Another system just pledged loyalty. That makes 8 in the past 2 days. Maria, the pilot, followed behind him. No battles, no losses, just fear. It's like the whole galaxy expected us to crush them. Ethan shook his head. We don't want power. We just want peace. But peace was hard to keep. One of the largest alien coalitions had collapsed overnight. The leaders disappeared. Some were arrested by their own people. Others tried to flee. Many surrendered without a fight. In a distant system, one alien general tried to organize an attack against the humans. He gathered a fleet of older ships and set course for the supercarrier. But halfway through the journey, most of his ships turned around. His own officers refused to go any further. The mission failed before it even started. Back on the supercarrier, Lena sat with Aurora in the main control room. "They're not afraid of us," she said. "They're afraid of what we remind them of. The past, the truth," Aurora replied. "They know humans never gave up, even when outnumbered, even when alone." The crew began receiving messages from across the galaxy. Some were calls for help. Others were just simple greetings. A few messages even came from alien scientists, hoping to meet the humans and learn from them. Asterisk. Ethan and Lena held a meeting with the full crew. They sat around a large table inside the ship. "We didn't plan this," Ethan said. "We didn't come here to lead anything. But the galaxy is watching us now. What do we do?" Maria asked. "We can't just leave them." Jason nodded. "They need something to believe in, and right now, that's us." Lena looked around the table. "Then we give them hope, not orders, not fear. We show them that humans don't want war." Everyone agreed. They would not become rulers. They would become guides. The crew began sending messages across the stars. Messages of peace, of rebuilding, of helping those in need. Slowly, systems that once stood in fear began to reach out. Small fleets from other species joined them, not as enemies, but as allies. Together, they started protecting weak planets, stopping pirates, and rebuilding trade routes. The Human Supercarrier became a symbol, not of war, but of change. One day, a large group of ships arrived near the supercarrier. They were not armed. They carried leaders from different species. These were the few who had not run or fallen. They had come to speak. Ethan stood before them. "We don't want control," he told them. "We want peace." An old alien leader stepped forward. His voice was tired. "Then teach us," he said. "Guide us. Help us stop the mistakes of the past." Lena looked at the others. Then she nodded. "We will help, but all of us must work together." From that moment, the galaxy began to heal. Years later, people across the stars told the story. They spoke of a forgotten human warship found in deep space. A ship that never fired a single shot, yet changed everything. And at the center of that story was a small crew of humans. Ordinary people. Not soldiers, not rulers. Just people who believed in something better. Aurora, watching everything from the heart of the ship, made one final message. Humanity has returned, not as conquerors, but as guardians, and the stars will never forget.